The morning the promotion disappeared, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply realized that 7 years of loyalty had been measured, weighed, and quietly dismissed. My name is Claire Bennett, and for 7 years, I worked at Evercrest Healthcare Consulting, a respected advisory firm in downtown Chicago. Whenever a client threatened to leave, my phone rang first. Whenever a project slipped behind schedule, people expected me to rescue it. I became the employee everyone depended on, but somehow never celebrated. For years, I convinced myself that hard work always paid off. Every late night, every canceled vacation, every impossible deadline felt like another deposit into a future I believed the company would eventually reward. I wasn't chasing fame. I only wanted the opportunity to lead. That illusion shattered on a rainy Monday morning. My director, Nathan Cole, asked me to join him in a glass conference room overlooking the city. His expression was calm, almost rehearsed. Before I even sat down, I noticed a congratulatory email glowing on the large monitor behind him. "Claire," he began carefully, "we've completed the selection process for the new Executive Strategy Director position." I managed a hopeful smile. "We've decided to promote Olivia Grant." For several seconds, I couldn't respond. Olivia had joined Evercrest only 9 months earlier. She was talented and friendly, but she had never handled the crises I managed every week. She had never rebuilt broken client relationships or trained half the department. Nathan continued talking. It wasn't an easy decision. Timing played a role. Organizational fit matters. There will be future opportunities. His words blended together until they became meaningless background noise. I'd heard every corporate phrase before. "This isn't a reflection of your value. We appreciate everything you do. Please stay patient." This time, however, I finally understood what those sentences really meant. The company had already decided exactly what I was worth. No amount of overtime would change that. No additional sacrifice would move me closer to the position I'd spent years preparing for. When the meeting ended, I thanked Nathan politely and walked back toward my office. Halfway down the hallway, Olivia appeared carrying a box filled with champagne glasses. Several coworkers surrounded her, laughing and congratulating her promotion. She stopped when she saw me. "I heard you already know," she said gently. "I hope this isn't awkward." I forced a genuine smile. "Congratulations, Olivia. You've earned it." She thanked me before rejoining the celebration. I returned to my desk, closed my office door, and stared silently at my computer. Instead of opening another client report, I created a blank document. Across the top, I typed 7 simple words. What happens if I stop waiting? For the first time in years, I wasn't asking how to impress the company. I was asking whether the company deserved another year of my life. That evening, I drove to a quiet diner on the edge of the city to meet my older brother, Ethan Bennett. The coffee tasted burnt, the booths were worn, and rain tapped steadily against the windows. After listening without interrupting, Ethan leaned back and asked a question that changed everything. If another company offered you the exact same position tomorrow, would you take it? I opened my mouth to answer, but stopped. For years I had believed I wanted a promotion. Now I realized what I really wanted was recognition from people who had already decided not to give it. The answer surprised even me. "No," I admitted. Ethan nodded. "Then maybe you're not afraid of leaving." Maybe you're afraid of admitting it's time." His words stayed with me all night. The next morning, I walked into Evercrest with a different mindset. I wasn't there to prove my worth anymore. I was there to prepare for my future. Instead of chasing approval, I started documenting every achievement from the past 7 years. I listed the struggling clients I had retained, the operational systems I had redesigned, the employees I had trained, and the emergency projects I had rescued. Everything was backed by performance reviews, public reports, and measurable results. I carefully avoided taking confidential company information because I wanted to leave with my integrity completely intact. Outside the office, I quietly reconnected with former coworkers who had moved into leadership roles at hospitals, insurance networks, and healthcare organizations. Most were happy to catch up over coffee or a video call. One conversation led to another. Slowly, my professional network came back to life. As the weeks passed, I noticed something Evercrest's executives seemed to ignore. Clients trusted individual advisors far more than corporate logos. They stayed because they believed the people solving their problems genuinely cared. That realization planted a dangerous idea. What if I built a company where talented professionals never had to beg for recognition? The thought refused to leave my mind. Over the next 4 months, I saved aggressively, cutting unnecessary expenses until I had enough money to live for 6 months without a paycheck. Every evening after work, I researched licensing requirements, business structures, and healthcare consulting trends. Finally, after weeks of planning, I registered a small consulting firm called Harbor Point Advisors. The business had no employees, no clients, and only a modest website. But for the first time in years, it belonged entirely to me. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't trying to hurt Evercrest. I was simply building an escape route. One based on confidence instead of hope. Then, just when I thought I had plenty of time to prepare, Evercrest made a mistake that forced my decision sooner than I ever expected. The turning point came during Evercrest's annual executive strategy meeting. For 3 weeks, I had worked late preparing a detailed operational improvement plan for one of our largest hospital clients. The proposal addressed staffing shortages, reporting delays, and communication failures that had been costing the client millions each year. Every recommendation was backed by data, practical timelines, and measurable outcomes. On the morning of the presentation, Nathan Cole asked me to email him my final slides. "I'll introduce your work to the board," he said. "Then we'll discuss implementation together." I believed him. From my office, I watched the presentation through the internal video feed. Nathan confidently walked through every recommendation I had created. He explained each strategy as though it had been his own idea, accepting compliments from executives who praised his leadership and innovation. Not once did he mention my name. When the meeting ended, applause filled the room. A few minutes later, Nathan stopped by my office wearing a satisfied smile. "Great work," he said casually. "This kind of exposure helps your career more than you realize." Exposure. That single word erased every remaining doubt. 7 years of loyalty had earned me invisible credit. I smiled politely, waited until he left, and quietly opened the resignation letter I had drafted weeks earlier. After reading it one final time, I printed 2 copies and walked calmly to Nathan's office. He looked surprised as I placed the envelope on his desk. "What's this?" "My resignation." He unfolded the letter, reading it once before starting again from the top. His confident expression slowly disappeared. "Claire," he finally said, "you're making an emotional decision." I shook my head. "No, Nathan. The emotional decision was spending 7 years believing things would change. This is the first decision I've made based on reality." Silence filled the office. He leaned forward. "We can work something out." "I don't think we can." Within an hour, Human Resources scheduled an exit meeting. By the end of the afternoon, news of my resignation had spread through the company. The following week was strangely quiet. Managers who rarely visited my office suddenly wanted meetings. Executives thanked me for my contributions. Nathan offered a retention bonus, additional vacation time, and finally, the promotion I had been denied months earlier. Each offer arrived a little too late. I declined everyone with genuine appreciation. On my final afternoon, coworkers stopped by to wish me well. Some admitted they had been thinking about leaving too. Others thanked me for mentoring them during difficult projects. As I carried a single cardboard box to the elevator, I expected to feel fear. Instead, I felt relief. The doors closed behind me, and 7 years of waiting disappeared with them. The next Monday morning, instead of driving to Evercrest, I unlocked the small office that would become the home of Harbor Point Advisors. It was empty except for a desk, a laptop, and an uncertain future. But for the first time in years, every success and every failure would belong to me alone. The first few weeks at Harbor Point Advisors were equal parts exciting and terrifying. Every morning, I unlocked a modest office that echoed with silence. There were no assistants, no overflowing inboxes, and no team waiting for instructions. Just me, a laptop, and a determination to prove that my value had never depended on a job title. 3 months later, the risk began paying off. One of my first clients was a regional hospital network that had learned about my work through a former colleague. They weren't looking for the biggest consulting firm. They wanted someone who understood their problems and would answer the phone when they called. That project led to another, then another. Within 6 months, Harbor Point Advisors had 4 steady clients, and my income had already surpassed what I earned during my final year at Evercrest. Even better, I was working fewer hours because I had built my company around realistic expectations instead of constant emergencies. As business grew, I hired my first 2 employees, professionals who had also been overlooked at their previous companies, despite consistently delivering excellent results. On their first day, I shared one simple promise. At Harbor Point, no one will ever have to guess what it takes to grow. Expectations will always be clear, and recognition will always match performance. I meant every word. Over the next 2 years, our reputation spread through referrals alone. Clients appreciated our honesty, our responsiveness, and the fact that we treated every project as a partnership instead of a transaction. Our team expanded to 18 talented people, each bringing ideas that made the company stronger. Then one afternoon, I received a LinkedIn message from Olivia Grant. She asked if we could meet for coffee. When we sat down, I barely recognized the confident woman who had once celebrated her promotion. She looked exhausted. "Evercrest isn't the same," she admitted quietly. Several senior employees have left. Clients are frustrated, and Nathan keeps asking why everything suddenly feels so difficult. She paused before meeting my eyes. I thought you left because you were angry. Now I realize you were the person holding everything together. I smiled, but not because I felt victorious. By then, I no longer needed anyone to confirm what I already knew. Several months later, my phone rang again. The caller was Nathan Cole. He offered me a senior executive position, a remarkable salary, decision-making authority, and even an ownership partnership if I returned to rebuild Evercrest. Years earlier, that offer would have felt like the fulfillment of every dream I'd ever chased. Now it felt like a chapter I had already finished reading. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "But I can't return to the place where I learned to doubt myself." After ending the call, I looked around my office at the incredible team we had built. In that moment, I understood my greatest success had never been making Evercrest regret losing me. It was becoming the kind of leader who never needed anyone else's approval to recognize my own worth.